Step into a world of romance and mystery with Tamora Rose. Today we're reading Chapter 16 of Child of the Wind. The sun had almost set and he still hadn't returned. Canace curled up in the makeshift bed Dolly had created by the dull fire and waited for him, afraid he had left her. Perhaps he decided that Barsland, and by extension her, wasn't worth the effort. King's command or not, he might have simply left her there to deal with it all on her own. And that she could not do. "My lady," Dolly whispered next to her, "you have to eat." But Canace shook her head. She wasn't interested in food. "I can't imagine you choosing not to eat." His voice had her jumping to her feet, almost knocking Dolly over in the process. "Jett, you came back!" As she rushed into his arms, Jett couldn't help but frown. "Did you think I would leave you here?" "I didn't know," she sniffled. "I wasn't sure." "I'm not leaving, lovely. Now have something to eat." Canace nodded and made her way back to the fluffy bed, but she kept a firm grip on Jett's arm as she did so. Once she was curled up in bed, she looked at him with eyes that still shimmered with tears. "Have you eaten, my lord?" she asked. "There's plenty here." She was right, he realized. The fare was simple, but there was a lot of it. Apples, plums, and vegetables abounded. There was even some tart cheeses and a bit of soft bread, neither of which had come from their own supplies. "Where did you get all this?" he asked Dolly. "The stores were full, my lord," she said. "We simply weren't allowed to touch anything. But I thought I might take the liberty for the sake of your lady." Jett nodded. "Make sure the remaining servants are well fed. Tomorrow will be a long day." Knowing a dismissal when she heard it, Dolly quietly withdrew. "What happened today?" Canace asked, popping a bit of cheese into her mouth. She was wildly curious after having been shut away in this chamber for so many hours. "There are things I won't burden you with," he said, "but I spent the day finding the steward's men. They were scattered, but I found them all." "What did you do with them?" "Lock them up. Until my father arrives, that's all I can do. They'll be sent to Suffolk tomorrow." Canace was secretly glad. She didn't know how to punish men who had wronged her, and she didn't want to learn. "What happens tomorrow?" "The real work begins." He told her what that meant, of ruined fields and empty stores, of people who were hungry and animals that had fled, of walls that had crumbled and doors torn from their hinges. The weight of it pressed down on her until she wished he had never said a word. Overwhelmed, Canace pushed the food aside and shivered, though the chill came from within. When Jett's arms came around her, she leaned into him. "Easy," he murmured. "It will be all right, I promise." She believed him. When he rose to tend the fire, she protested, but only until he explained that it was too small to keep her warm. She watched him feed it until the flames leapt bright and cheerful. Tonight they had fire, food, and each other. That was enough. She didn't object when he removed his doublet and shirt, nor when he climbed back into bed beside her, bare from the waist up. When he pulled her close and kissed her, she lifted her face willingly to his. He had expected her to turn away, to remind him of propriety and distance. Instead, her closeness told him she trusted him, and that knowledge stirred something deep and dangerous in him. Hands brushed skin. Breath caught. The world beyond the room seemed very far away. The firelight danced across them as the night stretched on, and whatever fear had lingered between them was slowly forgotten. Desire simmered, met with gentleness rather than haste, and though she would have welcomed more, he held fast to the promise he had made. When at last the fire burned low, they lay tangled together, hearts unsteady, the unspoken weight of what they had chosen lingering in the quiet. Canace turned her face into his chest, her voice little more than a whisper. Why didn't we?" He knew the question, even if she could not yet shape it. "I swore you would remain a virgin," he said softly. It seemed a poor time for a man to break his word. She smiled to herself and said nothing more for a long moment. "Jett," she shifted so that she could see his face. "Do you want to marry me?" Caught off guard, he stared up at the ceiling as the fire crackled behind them. "I don't like being forced," he said at last. Her body stiffened. "So you don't want to marry me?" "That's not what I said. If we'd met under different circumstances, you would have gained my interest quickly. I might have pursued you, but I don't like having no choice." She sat up sharply, tugging at her shift only for him to stop her. When she glared at him, he met her eyes steadily. "So I'm good enough to lie with," she said, anger threading her voice, "but not good enough to wed." He saw the tears she refused to let fall and swallowed the sharp reply that rose to his tongue. "I didn't say I wouldn't marry you," he said carefully. "I said I don't like being forced." "Well, I never had a choice either." He sighed. Women rarely do. The truth of that settled heavily between them. "Can we not pretend," she asked quietly, "that we were not bound by a king's decree?" He turned to her then, truly seeing her. "Are you saying you choose me, even without it?" "Well," she said, nestling against him, "you're not a troll, and I don't think you're cruel." He chuckled despite himself. Before either of them could say more, a soft bleating sound came from the corner of the room. "The lambs," he muttered. "Why are they still inside?" "They're still young," she said, though she knew they would have to be moved soon. "They belong with their own kind." "I know," she said quietly, "but not tonight." He pulled her closer and she relaxed against him. As sleep claimed her, she asked one last question. "Have you seen Bentley?" "He was chasing chickens earlier," he said. "Do you want me to fetch him?" "No," she yawned. "He'll come back when he's ready." Jett closed his eyes, secretly relieved. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this chapter, stay tuned for more tales of romance. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with passion and just a touch of magic.